All right, so last week we start chapter 3 of part 2, Spirit's book. We return to the Spirit, to the Spirit word from the physical life. We cover the first part, the soul after death. And today we're going to start the second part, separation of the soul and body. Just wanted to get a very quick recap of the soul after death, so we can have a better understand of the next part of this chapter. So the first question that Kardec asked for the spirit is, what happened to the soul after the time of death? And two words important for us to make sure that are comfortable with is soul, in accordance to spirit is an incarnated spirit. So when we are incarnate, we have this functioning physical body. This physical body is completely attached to our spiritual body, perispirit, and the perispirit always associated with the eternal spirit. So what we call soul and spiritism is this perispirit, eternal spirit complex when associated with a physical body. Therefore, when the physical body dies and we separate from that instrument that no longer works, makes no sense to be attached to it, right? We cannot call ourselves soul anymore, right? Because soul, by definition, is incarnated spirit. If there is no carne or body or matter, then we cannot call ourselves soul anymore. So the answer for the spirit is from the spirit is becomes a spirit again. Meaning it returned to the spiritual world after it had a briefly to where it briefly left. So the name changes. Does it matter? Well, terminology matters in every science, right? And spiritism is a science. So the nomenclature changes now. No longer soul, no yet spirit, or errant spirit, if you prefer. And we try our best to use the terminology and nomenclature as consistent as possible. But I have to admit, the word soul is so impregnated in the language that it have devices of language, you may misuse the word soul when you shouldn't. Of course, we try to correct ourselves. And the other word that is important is death. But to make sure that I conclude that death is an organic phenomenon. It's a material phenomenon. Body dies, spirit discarnate. And we already passed the question, I believe is 68, in which the spirit, Kardec has the spirits. What is the death of the organic organs? And the answer was the end of vitality of those organs. So what is death for us is the exhaustion, the expiration of the vitality of the physical body. When that happens, we start the process of discarnation, of the spirit separating from matter that's dead. Another word that I think is meaningful to us to keep in mind is return. It becomes a spirit again, meaning it returns to the spiritual world that it had briefly left. We commonly say, again, vices of language, he or she departed. He or she went to the spiritual world. So in reality, death is going back home. Being born is departing our true place of our real life. which our real life is the spiritual world. But the word return over here is not by accident. The spiritual one reminds us that we belong there. We come here for the school, for the hospital, for whatever we need. But we have to go back home eventually. So we return to where we came from. Individuality, it's very important to keep in mind that we eternal spirits maintain our individuality at all times. We will never lose individuality. We can ask what would be of us without individuality, i.e. identity? What am I without an identity? It doesn't make any sense, right? And this question is well placed. We already covered spontaneous. It was something that was common at that time, I believe, in other doctrine, other religions. And even some Christian religions, that is this dogma of returning to God and become a part of the whole. There is even inside of Christianity a dogma that those who go, let's say, to heaven, and they do not remember their loved ones. How would that make any sense in accordance to our doctrine, in which we maintain ourselves and the relationship that we have with our loved ones, or relationships that is based in true love, is just as eternal as we are? If you go to the whole, become a part of the whole, and lose individuality and have no memory of our loved ones. It sounds very, very mean of a God who's supposed to be your loving justice. We keep our individuality at all times. And I think another point that is good to keep in mind, we take nothing with us except our memories. And the answer to this spirit is memories. The sours and the sweet ones. We bring with us the responsibilities of our decisions, the responsibility of how we utilized our free will and our intelligence while we are. Those we bring with us. And the necessity to make reparations, or there is nothing to repair. I don't know who could say that. Then enjoy the state of bliss somewhere, I'm pretty sure very far from that. So these are the three most important points of the first part that I want to make sure that you are all very comfortable with it. Is there any questions? And I just want to remind, it's always good to remind everyone that this is a study group. There are no teachers and disciples over here. We are all students, all teachers, all trying to learn from one another. Okay? My role over here is just to lead the study groups, not to teach anyone, because I'm not able to. All right, Philip?
Yes.
154.
Is the separation of the soul from the body painful? No. The body often suffers more during life than at death because the soul is usually unaware of what is occurring to the body at death. At the time of death, the spirit often enjoys what it is feeling because it recognizes that it is at the end of its exile. In natural death, which is the after effect of exhaustion of the body due to age, human beings depart this life without even realizing that they are doing so. Like the flame of a lamp that dwindles and eventually goes out when it lacks a source of power.
This time I just mute something. Okay. I think it's always good to remind ourselves that some of those answers given by the spirits is an answer in potential on the capability of. So, and then the analogy that I always use is, if you ask someone, can human beings swim? And the answer has to be yes. But if you ask, does every single human being swim? The answer obviously is no. But every human being has the potential. Well, that should not say every, but if you lack the necessary anatomy, you're not going to be able to. But in general, everyone is able to learn to swim and to do so. But you know that from the individuals who do not swim. So a lot of those answers that is given here is that in potential, that spirits are able to. And the answer has to be yes, because they are able to. The answer, can humans swim, has to be yes, even though we know that not every human are able to swim. And keep that in mind to avoid silly comments and questions, because here's the law of average. We don't deal with the specifics, okay? So is the separation of the soul from the body painful? It shouldn't be. But for most of us, it still is. The separation of the body itself is a detachment of multiple wires, connectors, points of connections that we have between the perispirit and the physical body that should not cause pain. But because of guilty, because of attachment, because of complete neglect of our spirituality, we just cover the chapter that deals with materialism. If you're a materialist and there is absolutely nothing after death of the body, and you continue to be alive, to be separated from that decaying body will become difficult. And you may feel pain, but you feel pain generated by the mind, generated by the guilty, generated by the attachment. So at the time of death, for those who have, Kardec over here, natural death, and assume the natural death being for those who have lived a long life, and the expiration of the vital fluid is happening slowly, a few years or few months or whatever, and the spirit individual is completely comfortable with death. Someone who somewhat fulfilled the objectives of that reincarnation and is living here without any heavy weight in their conscience, is comfortable what he or she has accomplished during this life. That death is almost pleasurable for those individuals. Again, going back home, no, I did my 4 years of college or whatever, and I did well. I passed all the classes. I have a good job waiting for me already. Now I'm going home. Should be nice and good, right? Unfortunately, not many of us go home at that stage. Natural death of the natural expiration of the body, in general, again, suggests someone who took care of him or herself, did not abuse him or herself, and that has somewhat a correlation with fulfilling all the jobs extracorporeal, being a professional, being a parent, because all those, being a good person in general, because all those things that we do contrary to divine laws creates a conflict. with our conscience. And those conflicts could be expressed as disease in the physical body. So in general, someone was able to live a life long enough, and long enough is depending on whatever the plan was for those individuals, right? Someone come here with a plan to go for 60, someone with a plan to go to 90, someone with a plan to go to 40, right? And again, it's just a plan, it's not written in stone, everything can be changed. But someone was able to fulfill their objective of that reincarnation and go to the last days of that plan, there is a suggestion that there's someone who has taken good care of him or herself, not only physically, but also morally, to be in that state of absolute peace, ready to go back home. So it should not be painful, but there can be pain associated. But the pain associated is generated by the mind. And we see in our spirited meetings very often, almost always, the spirits who come in complaining of pain. Sometimes generalized pain, tiredness, sometimes very localized pain. My head hurts, my arm hurt, my back hurt. Those pains are real. Not saying that the spirit is lying. No, they are real because they are feeling it. But that pain that they have is generated by their mind. Okay, and the same could happen at the moment of discarnation. But it's very important. Most of the time of discarnation, most of us, again, in general, will be in a state of sleep-like state, almost like a hibernation stage, that we don't really will appreciate what is happening to the body at that moment. One thing to keep in mind, perhaps I'm going ahead in the book here, is that no one dies alone. At the moment of discarnation, there is a group of specialized workers in the spiritual world that assist spirits at the moment of discarnation, assist the spirit at the moment of separation of that physical body that's now it's a dead body. Okay?
Question 155.
Sure.
How does the separation of the soul from the body take place? As the bonds restraining the soul are broken, it separates from the body. Is this separation sudden? Is there a distinct line between life and death? No, it is not like a bird whose cage is suddenly opened, allowing it to escape at once. The soul gradually separates from the body. The two states are blurred together, and the spirit extracts itself little by little. Can't see anymore. From its bonds, which are loosened but not broken. During life, a spirit is connected to the body by its semi-material envelope or perispirit. Death is the destruction of the body, but not of this envelope, which separates from the body when organic life ends. Observation has shown us that the separation of the perispirit from the body at death is gradual rather than abrupt, and this speed may vary depending on different individuals. In some cases, it is so quick that the perispirit completely separates from the body within a few hours after passing, while in others, particularly for those whose life has been exceedingly material and sensual, this release is much slower and can take days, weeks, or even months. This does not imply the persistence of vitality in the body or any possibility of restoring life, but is simply the result of a whole between the body and the spirit, proportionate to how consumed the spirit was with materiality during its human life. It is only rational to assume that if a spirit has closely identified with matter, it will be more difficult for it to separate from its material body. In contrast, intellectual and moral elevation of thoughts initiates this division even during the life of the body. Consequently, when death ultimately arrives, the separation is almost immediate. Studies of individuals after their death have shown that sometimes the connection that remains between the soul and the body is extremely painful, as the spirit is fully cognizant of all the horrors of decomposition. This is an exceptional case and unique to certain kinds of life and certain kinds of death. It can happen in the event of suicide.
Okay, so how does the separation of the soul from the body takes place? If the soul, the spirit perispirit complex, separates from the bodies because it's attached somehow, right? And it depends who you read. They will say that the perispirit attached to the physical body, molecule by molecule. Others will say cell by cell. And I have read even organ by organ. Don't know which one hold true, from something in the middle. But regardless, the separation of the body that's now dead from the spirit does by the laceration of those connectors, wires, whatever word you are comfortable with. Go back to natural death when someone, let's say that is had a plan to go to live to 85 and was giving a tank full of energy to last 85 years. Right? I mean, if the plan is for me to live 40 years, they're not going to give me enough energy, enough vital fluids for 20 years. They're not going to give me for 85, it'll be a waste, right? And if you get your car, let's say, you fill up your tank over here and someone tells you with this full tank, if you drive at 65 miles per hour, if you be no good to this car, this full tank will last you from here to Washington, D.C. No problem. You can go, we don't have to refuel, it's gonna be fine. Now, if stand off time driving at 65 or so, I start to drive at 165 and likely it's not gonna make it, Washington D.C., right? Or the reasons, my lack of discipline, my lack of discipline, my excesses may derail that plan and I'm not gonna last that, right? So if I am, and if you do use the car properly, if you're smart about your drive and everything else, you're going to see the tank, no, that was at half full, going to beetle the, getting whatever it's got before it gets to the sea, but still with enough gas to get to the sea, but you'll see that it's going up. The same thing as one individual chronologically ages, right? The vitality, the energy of the 40 years old and the 85 years old. I know there's some great 85 years old there today that's running marathons, guy in amazing shape. And I know there's 40 years old that can cross the street without needing oxygen, right? So out of shape. But in general, again, I always say in general, the 85 years old guy just knows that the tank's not full anymore. No, it doesn't have the same amount of vitality as when he was 40 or 20 years old. It's a normal process of aging, it's a normal process of starting to lose some of those vital fluids, because you don't want to get, my plan is to go to 85, keep a full tank at 85 and then empty it at once. It's not going to happen. It's going to be going down slowly, just like when you're driving in a proper way of drive, you see the gas, the needle going down slowly. So at the time of death, if it's a natural death, so it's not a precipitated death, some of those wires are already disconnected. You're in preparation of going back to the spiritual world. Some of the things you don't even need anymore. In nature, you lose it. If I don't have enough vital fluids for certain things, start disconnecting, start losing up a little bit. So much so that even a completer, if I get to the end of the journey as it is supposed to be, that separation is almost immediate, instantaneous, because a lot of the wires is already gone, because I am comfortable with going back to the spiritual world, because I'm not fighting it, I'm not holding it tight, so that I have no attachment to material body or anything else. That separation be nice and easy. You go back to spiritual world, you return, you go back home. It is, no problem. On the contrary, also is true, of course. We're fully materialistic. Nothing after the death of the physical body. I'm going to try to hold on to the physical body as much as I can, because it's my only source of existence. I've become nothing when the body dies, because that's what I believe. Therefore, you're going to try to hold on to the body as much as possible. And you will compromise that process of separation. It's like when you go get intramuscular injection. We know that. If you relax, let the needle go in, you almost feel nothing. But if you tighten those because you're scared, it hurts. You generate your own pain. A lot. And of course, the needle on your arm or your body, you feel the needle. If you relax, it's almost nothing. If you tighten, if you make it hard, you generate your own pain. And that's the same thing with the separation of the body from the soul. It should be an easy process. We should be comfortable with that. We should allow this process to go as it's supposed to go. And it should not be painful. It should not take long. We have revelations, maybe some 130 years after this Spirit's book, that was revealed that it takes up to 72 hours to complete the separation of the perispirit from the physical body. And the very last thing to be detached is what they call is disconnect. They call the silver line. There's the last one to be disconnected. The one that's connected, then this connection is completed. It's very important to keep in mind other projects where this is put over here. Let's use the example of the materialist who thinks that there is absolutely nothing after death of the body, that will try to hold on to that body as much as possible, try to compromise the process of incarnation as much as possible. It will happen in 72 hours, according to Emmanuel. The association of that spirit to that body may linger a lot longer. This does not mean, and I'm going to quote it because they are very important, this does not imply the persistence of vitality in the body or any possibility of the body and the spirit, or spirit proportionate to how consumed the spirit was with materiality during the human life. It's going to happen. The spirit will separate from that body. It's gonna take up to 72 hours, according to Emmanuel. There is no way to prolong it. There is no way to make a deal when once the physical body loses vitality, there is no way to change it anymore. There is, and we know cases of prolongation of that plan. Let's say that we know, can use the one that we know for sure is Chico Xavier, that had a plan to go up to certain years. But because of the work that he was doing, because he could be so well used by the elevated spirits, he received some extra load of vital fluid. As if like, you are doing so well that don't stop at Washington, D.C. I want you to go to South Carolina. I'm going to put some more gas in the tank for you here. And they put some more gas in the tank for you. And now you can go what was supposed to be New York to Washington, D.C. with that tank. And so you're going to give some more gas. You're doing good work. You wanted to bring what you brought to D.C. down to South Carolina. You can get a extra dose of vital fluid, so to say, and prolong that. The same way that, again, we can misuse what we have and shorten the length of stay in the physical body, in the plane. Can the spirits feel and sense the decomposition, the decay, the separation? In general, no. In general, again, you're going to be in a state of sleepless. It's going to be almost like a hibernation state, and things will follow it, not natural process. But there are, again, specific circumstances. There is the exceptions to the rules, and one of those exceptions in case of suicide. When we choose to end our own physical life, which is a pretty serious mistake that we make, is a pretty serious crime against the natural laws. And we may have to yet mindfully attach to that body and witness, even its discarnation and its suffering, and we can only imagine the torment that it might be when the spirit was already, against somebody who wants to kill oneself, having problems with oneself, and say, I can't even kill myself. I mean, I did everything the way it's supposed to be now, and I'm still alive, and I still see this body in such horrific pain. It's, of course, it's a difficult expiation that the spirit may go through. But again, this is exceptions to the rules. In the book Heaven and Hell, in the part of the good spirits, Mr. Sanson, he has some messages in the Gospel according to Spiritus. He was a member of the Spiritual Society with Kardec. And that made the deal that whoever discarnated first, they would be called in one of the mediumship meetings. And Mr. Sanson was called 8 hours after his discarnation. He was able to show up to a meeting. 8 hours. And they asked him, how was the separation of the body? And his answer was, oh yeah, right. I didn't have the body, right? Couldn't even remember, even care for it anymore. That's the level of peace going back to the spiritual world. And there is also in the part of the suffering spirit, I forget the name of the spirit, it's Lily Bat, something like that, was a female, that spent about 150 years suffering pain in association with the physical body, 150. Because all the vanity, all her absolutely disdain to the natural process of aging. She thought she deserved to be young and pretty throughout eternity, and extremely vain, and rejected the natural process of aging and reject the natural process of death, and had to suffer for 150 years in association with that body that 150 years had already turned into dust by now, right? Maybe some bones left, but mindly you are still suffering because of the association with the physical body. And again, mind with the mind. Okay, got 150 years, the blood is completely decayed. You know? Pure skeleton, even bone start to break down a little bit already. Okay, questions? All right, 156 per minute.
Can the definitive separation of the soul and body take place before the complete termination of organic life? When experiencing extreme agony, the soul sometimes leaves the body so that all that remains is purely organic life. The person is no longer conscious of him or herself, despite the faint flicker of vitality remaining. The body is a machine that is regulated by the heart. As long as the heart pumps blood through its veins, it continues to live. A soul is not needed for this.
I think it's a very good question. The body is a machine that's regulated by the heart. That was the science of the 1850s. Now today, the body is a machine that is regulated by the brain, right? It's not wrong. It's the right writing of the time. Should we make a correction in the book? Absolutely not. That's the answer for the spirits. We should make the comment over here. At that time, that was the understanding of the science of the days. Now we know that it's the brain. There's no need to make correction on the book. I think you can imagine two situations here, right? And bring to today's technology and advancements of medicine as well. One that Kardec says over here, at times of tremendous agony, the spirit can detach itself, again, mindfully from that physical body and just gone. You can imagine someone who is in a comatose state, someone who is comfortable with his or her own spirituality, someone who knows there is no way out of that comatose state, say, why should I be hanging out here for? Now, if the whole spiritual world is waiting for me, I'm going to stay here attached to this physical body who's never going to wake up and be any useful to me. Out of here. Bingo. The same way that we are able to detach, that we do that every single night, right? When you dream, when you disconnect, still attached by the silver cord with the silver lining. The spirits are able to do the same thing. Another possibility, now taken to modern days, we can support organic life with machines who can inject fluids into the veins and get and get our heart to be pumping. We can intubate the individual and put them in a ventilator and make the lungs go up and down, up and down, up and down, and that sustain a artificial life, so to say. The spirit does not need to be hanging out in there. Home exam that is always done in case of transplant. individuals who donate their body for transplantation or organs to transplantation, when that physical body dies, the transplant team comes in and they keep that body, for that heart pumping, that lungs inflating, deflate, to keep those organs viable. And that may take 3, 4, 5 days, and for many different reasons, logistics, have a OR to bring this body through, or we're still waiting for this, we're still waiting for that. We don't have, the proper staff to do this. Or they have to run some genetic testing because they want to donate for this individual, for that individual. Have to find sorry, the proper receiver for those things. They take some days, and then just keep that body alive artificially. Will the spirit be hanging out there for what? Makes no sense.
So in this case, the super cord is completely detached.
Could be.
The spirit is.
72 hours.
Okay.
72 hours. There's no more need to maintain anything. All that is being maintained at this point is purely artificially by machines. It's already knew that it don't have to be 72 hours, but up to 72 hours, right? And the spirit is comfortable going back to the spiritual world. Yeah, you may do it. You have only that organic artificial body alive, which is not really alive, until they are able to use it for you take the organs, harvest is the proper word, the organs for transplantation. So it could happen. But once that silver cord is detached, that's it. The physical body, that spirit can never return anymore to that body. And that body eventually will start the process of decay. As soon as you turn off the machines, it will start the process of decay. Go to our natural flora, the bacteria that lives inside of us. They start the process of decomposition as soon as that blood stops pumping. Okay?
157. At the moment of death, does the soul sometimes experience a kind of bliss that gives it a glimpse of the world to which it is about to return to? The soul often feels the slackening of the restraints holding it to the body and struggles to fully break them. Partially freed from matter, it views the future laid out before it and enjoys the anticipation of the spirit state.
Again, that is one of the questions that says in potential. That's what it should be for all of us, right? Only, I think, in any one of us who at moment of that separation experience this, it means that you did a pretty good job. It means that you kind of fulfill most of the objectives, took care of the business that you are supposed to be taking care of while here. That's what it should be. That's the potential for all of us, but not necessarily everybody goes through. Again, the purely materialistic. How comfortable can one be comfortable with absolute nothingness? At the moment that this physical body dies, I cease to exist is absolute nothingness. Man, you have to be highly evolved to be comfortable with that. And not everything is right. And if you're highly evolved, you understand that it's something after that as the physical body. So it's not a possibility. But for those who are comfortable with their death, who have a sense of accomplishment, then they will feel that something loosen up over here, I'm free. Come back home. Makes the sun 8 hours after. They didn't even remember you had the body anymore. You have to be reminded of that. And if I remember correctly, he had some chronic disease that lingers for a few months before his death. So you also had the preparation for that, right? if the moment of birth, they say that is perhaps the greatest pain that you ever experience. Can only imagine, no one remembers, but the very first time that that little lungs fill up with air for the first time, those ribs have to go up and down. You must be so extremely painful for that spirit. No wonder they cry, right? They expect to be painful. In a nice, warm environment, instead of that uterus filled of fluid at about 36 to 37 degrees, centigrades, and then you come all the sun out this world that, usually those rooms are pretty cold, so let's put 65 degrees, for the very first time in your life, for the very first time you have to fill up your lungs with air, you feel that expansion of all your organs over there. Not a pleasant experience. I think most of us, if you could, you're going to run right back inside, right?
That's session with a strong light on your face.
Oh, this is actually even worse. You gotta think of it. So to come here is a painful experience. Going back should not be. But you should feel something. There is a change. It's a something change. Now you carry this thing for quite some time, even though, let's say, you are completed and your vital fluid is going down slowly. The gas is going from full to empty slowly in the natural process. It's still, when it's empty, and you're gonna feel that back at least. So at least that one should feel, but no more than that. And for those who are comfortable going back home, those have a sense of accomplishment, you start to look ahead at all that they can get and do in the spiritual world, free of the limitation of this physical body, the limitation that body poses upon us. But unfortunately, what we have in potential is not necessarily the way it happens for most of us.
Elmo, hi, it's Carol here. May I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Yeah, usually there is much celebration when a loved one is coming here to be birthed, but what about the process of when a loved one is coming from the spirit world and leaving the spirit world? Are the loved ones there in joy, or are they feeling a bit sad or maybe apprehensive, because it's like a death on that side, perhaps?
Yeah, but it's both,
I see.
right? I mean, imagine you have your loved one, someone that you care for a lot, that is very dear to your heart. And that someone is leaving town to go to college in another state for the necessary studies, for the necessary, trials in that college now. You feel sad for separating from that individual whom you are attached emotionally, sentimentally. You definitely feel its absence, even maybe a bit melancholic about it. But at the same time, you are jubilant and happy that the spirit is going ahead with its plans of make oneself better, of doing what needs to be done to progress, both morally and intellectually, right?
Great. Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah, I always had wondered about that, whether there's like sort of there's like a welcoming committee, there's a send-off committee wishing them well in a different sense. They're going to be undertaking the birth being a task or a challenge, or something that is like a repeat lesson. So indeed, there would be mixed feelings. That's interesting. Thank you so much.
And if you know that this loved one is coming here for this trial, there's some really tough experience and difficult experiences, you have to have a certain faith, a certain moral advancement to understand that it's painful, it's not going to be fun, but it is the best for my loved one. So therefore, as much as I feel that he will suffer so much, I'm happy that he have the opportunity to go through that and make all the necessary reparations. And when he comes back home, he'll be in much better shape, right?
Thank you, Elmo. That's
Right. But again, and there is melancholy, there is sadness. I mean, as much as we understand that life for us spiritists, that life continues, that it's a normal process, that the one that I love, know that relationship is based on true, real love. We're going to be reunited in the spiritual world eventually. When our loved one goes back, we're gonna get sad. We're gonna have some melancholy, and no, we're gonna feel its absence. Someone that was always with us now will no longer be with present, at least physically. You're gonna feel sad, but at the same time, the better for him or her. He's going back home a little bit earlier than I, but we'll be together again eventually. It requires this degree of being comfortable with the spiritual nature. In that point, intellectual knowledge helps a lot, right? You know intellectually that's the process. And when on top of that, you add the moral aspect, you know, well, he is or she was pretty much of a completer. Few of us are completed. By completer means the one who fulfill the objectives. You know, most of us leave things behind, but we know that divine benevolence, you know, an error and love covers a multitude of errors that, you know, even all our mistakes, thank God, we catch a lot of breaks with the divine laws, right? If the law was an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, one error you have to pay, spend millennials in suffering the spiritual world, but that's not the case. So most of us was a good citizen somewhat. We'll be all right in the spiritual world and have that intellectual understanding, knowledge. It makes it a lot more comfortable to see our loved ones going back to the spiritual world. And the truth is the same. When we have to let them go from there to come here, knowing that this is a necessary experience, may not be the most pleasant, but it will do a lot of good for that spirit, right? Have a loved one who needs to go to the hospital to get a huge surgery that they will require going to intensive care after surgery and being intubated for 6-7 days or whatever, but that's what will allow that individual to live a little longer over here. It's going to be painful, it's going to be difficult, but that's what's required, and we allow them to go to that. Maybe even if it's our kids or anything like that. All right, I think I'll stop here. João will be back in 3 weeks. Any more questions, more comments? Okay, for Sunday we have at 11 o'clock. With the gospel and across the spirituals. We are in the last chapter, this chapter of prayers. And talking about prayers, Carol, can you do a final prayer?
Yes, thank you so much, Elmo, for hosting our group this evening. Great class. Infinite Creator and Divine Providence, we give thanks to be together again as brothers and sisters for our studies of the Spirit's book, chapter 3, our topic being separation of the soul and body. The soul is associated with the incarnated physical body. The perispirit is the link from the spirit to the body. A soul gradually separates from the body at the time of death. There should not be a pain connected. However, unless there are material attachments or mental guilt or remorse that remains in the consciousness. Those who depart peacefully are usually morally aware and generally have an easier transition to the spirit world. Those who commit suicide will have a difficult and often a painful transition after dying. This action goes against the natural laws. Therefore, we know that we will be experiencing life after life, and many times we will have a transition. We hope that it will be a much easier and more pleasant one. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us this evening. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us and for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, the counselors, the mediums, the workers, and all who are participating. We pray now for inner peace, a balanced life, and especially for world peace and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center SGNY and all Spiritus centers throughout the world, that they may grow, prosper, expand, and be protected throughout the day and throughout the night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, friends, loved ones, and coworkers. May we go forth now and remind ourselves to be beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and charity, which is love in action. May peace prevail, so be it.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Elmo.